challenge that we're all going to get through together.
What about you, John?
Yeah, so I oversee two concepts, Mad Greens and Snappy Salads, based out of Denver, and we have some in Phoenix, Austin, and Dallas. We've been joking, I went back and did a presentation to our ops group, and I went back like 3, 4, 5 years to look at what I've done in my presentation each of those years. And I feel like we've been in the labor crisis for like 5 years, because of every slide, every year I show, we're hanging on to the labor life raft. And I felt like we were getting closer to shore. And then this last, probably 4 months, really since about March, in the recovery, we're smack in the middle of the ocean. Like the life raft is nowhere close to shore anymore. So it's been brutal. We're all, experiencing it. I would say that, by state, Arizona maybe has been a little bit better than the rest of them, but it's all hands on deck every single day. It's people, who's showing up, who's not showing up, how do we get them, how do we find them? So it's a constant thing in our business, and we've always said we're a people business that happens to serve food to people, and what happened during the pandemic was, the people that we were selling to weren't there. We had enough supply, and we had enough people that could support the people that were coming. But now the first two parts of the equation are busted, because we don't have people that can actually serve food, because we don't have the food either. So it's been very challenging, but operators are super resilient, and every day it's sad because they've gotten accustomed to, like, this is the new norm, if you will. But they're super resilient and still show up to work with a smile on their face.
What about you?
So, funny story, I almost didn't make it today due to the labor crisis. So I came directly from the commissary here, and we operate the majority of our stores are franchise. So luckily for us, we have a lot of owner-operators that are able to manage their stores. But we do see a big battle coming up, and even with us right now with labor, and we're trying to fight day in, day out. But something new for us for sure.
But I think John brought up a good point in that, I think the elephant in the room is that COVID didn't create this issue. I think it exacerbated the issue, right? It accelerated the issue, but this issue's been around for quite a while. And so, in your restaurants, what types of things are you looking at from a wage standpoint, from a benefit standpoint, an incentive standpoint that you think is going to make the difference in keeping employees in the workforce? And kind of where do you see that going? You can start, Drew.
Sure. We have some operators that have already taken a minimum wage increase preemptively in markets that maybe didn't have to, just to combat the ask. We're different things that you used to be able to send people out onto the website to go fill out an application. Now you just look, if they walk in the door, you put a hat on them and say, here's an oven, let's get going. But no, I would say that we have to get creative. We're big on culture, winning a labor, challenge. Even 4 years ago, when we were talking about stores having trouble finding people or keeping people, it still came down to being a great place to work. And that's still true today. Even with the challenges, our top stores have great owners, great teams that want to be there, and they're working through it together.
How about you, John?
Yeah, Drew brings up a really great point. The culture inside the restaurant is, I think, the greatest retention tool that we have. If the chicken, I can go through all the numbers, I look at all 40 of our restaurants, and I see turnover rate every single month. The managers that I believe are very strong leaders, very high culture, they're bought into the brand. Those folks don't have near as much of a problem with retention and attracting new talent as folks that you may question whether or not they should be in their role. So I think the general manager role is critical in the culture of keeping folks. We have stores in this environment that have 0% turnover here today, and those stores are fantastic operators. So that is, first and foremost, that has to be handled, and we work hard to try to to maintain a culture and environment that's very family friendly. You know, it's family first. We care about one another. Darden, our CEO, and I both are on hug status when we go into stores and meet people and thank our staff. You know, pay, you have to be competitive to pay. That's the ante to play. The government is mandating, you know, $15, I think it's $15 minimum wage in Denver, or maybe working towards it. You know, Arizona is elevated, so there's the local mandates that are causing the wage to inflate. And, you know, we rise and we go above that to try to stay competitive. The benefit side of it is where I've often had a challenge with understanding the return on investment. When we've rolled out new programs to our hourly staff, it's met with, you know, it's very exciting, it's good news, but then we continue to have the same turnover. And I used to think Starbucks was always the gold standard in terms of turnover. I've been around fast casual restaurants for like 20 years, 25 years. They're the gold standard. They were always right around 80, I think 80% turnover, and everybody else is in the 120, 130% turnover in fast casual. I was like, how do you do it? Oh, they offer education, or it's healthcare, or this or that and the other. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know if that's true, because today they can't find employees. I mean, they're often Spotify and all sorts of getting really creative. They can't find employees. So I don't know that the benefits is really doing what it's meant to do. And so I've struggled with that aspect of it. Where I do spend resources to try to elevate benefits is in the GM ranks, in the AGMs that will eventually become GMs. Because again, going back to the culture piece, those folks are so critical. We want them to stick around. And our turnover rate in GMs is 30% or less. And we've got folks that have been around, you know, basically since the beginning.
And for us, you know, I'm taking the approach of the simplicity of the operational aspect of the business. So we're going in the stores, working in the front lines, working in the front of house, back of house, to see what tools we can bring in to simplify the process for our employees. The more simplified we make it, the easier it is for them to operate, to come into work, to enjoy working. So from technology, from food prep, off-premise cooking from our commissary. This is for me, I think, what I have seen in the stores as I've been visiting and working in the front lines. I see the amount of work that the employees have to do, and I'm working on simplifying those different levels. Okay, if we can reduce the time of preparation, if we can reduce the time of cook time, can we bring in some different tools and equipment to help speed the process and simplify them? That for me is what I see helping us out.
So I'm going to segue back to you, Nor. Did you have anything else, John?
What Nor just said was really interesting, because when I was just bragging about our GM turnover, back in like 2016, we actually had a GM turnover problem. And one of the things that was a common theme was we were too complicated. It was too hard for them to manage all the things that they were responsible of managing. So we spent the better part of 2017 with multi-unit operators and some of our GMs figuring out how can we simplify our operation to make your lives better. And since then, I think that was a sort of a critical point. So when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot we did that, and that was super important.
It's a great discussion. You know, I'm going to segue back to you, Nor, and because we brought up a couple of things: culture and you know, trying to make it to where you're using technology to better serve not only your customers but your employees, and possibly connect with your employees too. What types of strategies are you putting in play that you look at, because we know that this labor market's changing and you're going to have to adapt to it. So what are you specifically putting in place to kind of change with this adapting labor force from a technology standpoint?
So for us, I think right now we're hyper focused on the kiosk aspect of the business to simplify the process for our employees. The one-on-one interaction that we used to have a year or so ago is non-existent now. You know, everything has changed. Everything is app-based. Everything is, how do I get my food so quickly? I don't want to interact with this person due to COVID. I want to get in and get out. So for us, we're focusing on the technology of self-ordering kiosks, implementing the app, helping the employees with the online order, where it simplifies the process for them because it gives them that time to produce the product and have it sitting on the shelf for the customers. So for us, again, our main focus is front of house.
Very good. What about you, John?
Yeah, I don't know that.
I know we had a chance to talk about it yesterday, but you know, it's always interesting speaking to different operators across the country and kind of how they're adapting. And we all know we need to adapt to this like labor environment, but you had some specific things you guys are doing.
Well, I don't know that we have anything, I'm just thinking just technology-wise, what have we done to make our staff, their lives easier. I was thinking about third-party delivery. The infancy of third-party delivery, and I guess it still exists, but we've kind of made it so that it doesn't, is that, there was all these iPads and tablets and the dinging and printing and the folks trying to manage that. They're pulling their hair out if they have any. But when we flipped on all the sort of digital channels and third-party delivery, we more or less mandated in our organization that we would only use Rails, solo Rails, so that it plugs into our point of sale. They're managing one piece of technology for all of the channels, and that was super helpful in the sort of evolution and the speeding up of what Code did with third-party delivery. We were able to navigate that and manage it better, and it didn't add stress to them, whereas if they were managing all those tablets, it would have. In terms of like technology inside the restaurant, we've looked at and interested in thinking about there's these robotic salad making machines now, which didn't used to exist, but with the cost of labor what it is, it's something that we're at least going to scratch the issue to see if it's something that's feasible or not. I question it, but we started putting equipment, different types of equipment, so not necessarily technology, but instead of hand chopping stuff, can we get a high-end Roku that can do that and have it be a high-quality product? It doesn't have to be chopped by hand. That certainly was helpful in terms of simplification. So those are just a couple points.
What about you, John?
Yeah, similar to these guys, we got a little bit lucky in that we rolled out OLO Rails right before the pandemic March. When it hit, we were lucky we could pivot to that and help our operators out with the seamless online ordering. And then we also implemented a learning management system that, again, with the younger demographic going digital on that, both helped out our operators because they could go on their computers or phones and do some of the training, but from a consistency standpoint, it's really gone a long way where we're not just throwing people into the fire, so to speak. As far as retention, training is huge, making sure you're not, just throwing people in there. So those are two things we did kind of ahead of COVID and during COVID that are paying dividends now.
So back to you, Drew. There's certain states that have put incentives or trying to incentivize folks from coming in. There are a lot of people, as you know, are getting unemployment. I think it runs out here in September. COVID seems like it was in a rearview mirror, but it really isn't. I think it's starting to spark up again. So have the incentives worked, and where do you see that going? Have they worked in the states that you're in right now to get people back?
Well, I think Georgia had a little bit better control over the unemployment in terms of the owner was submitting those hours, and so I think some states the employee could I'm not an HR person, so I'm probably butchering this, but it was on the employees submitting that they were employed or not, or in Georgia the owner could submit that, so there was less people just kind of staying at home for no reason. Anyway, I know I butchered that, but I would say the incentives for us to get people back in is really just about exemplifying what we're doing differently or better. We had an owner in Iowa, an article came out this morning I read where he was going to other restaurants that were open until 2 a.m. and saying, hey, I'm only open until 9. And the article said he's used the term poaching, which he claims he didn't use, but, just things like that, like, we're a good place to work because of the things that we're already doing, and just highlighting that.
Great. What about you, John?
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen, I think Arizona changed their setup instead of September, it was July, or first week of July. I think Texas was around the same timeframe. I don't know that we saw a huge benefit with the reduction of those unemployment benefits in those states. But we're in a period, we actually have the benefit of, our peak sales are May through September, May through August, let's say, which coincides with when we get a seasonal workforce of high school kids and college kids that can come back. So we've actually, not today, maybe, but 2 weeks ago, we're in a pretty good position labor-wise because of the seasonal workforce. Now, schools started opening in Colorado a couple days ago, and in those districts where the schools started opening, it's all hands on deck. We're canceling ops meetings, and all our multi-units are having to go run shifts because we're back to where we were, in May before the students came. So I don't know that, maybe if we're getting a benefit, it's somewhat masked by the fact that we have the seasonal workforce. But, I think about, all the incentives to not work being, unemployment. There's also, rent moratoriums, and I think that got pushed to January or end of the year. There's student, loan interest that you don't have to pay. There's forbearance on that continues to go, I think, in the year of January. And then the other kicker, the shocking one that just occurred, and I'll tell an anecdote, the child tax credit. So the advancement of your tax dollars, that are the credits that you get, and next year, they're actually paying that out now. We actually have had people quit and say, we're like, well, where are you gonna go? You got something else, or are you leaving the industry? Because that's something that we're always interested in. Are they leaving to another concept or leaving for the industry? No, I just want to take the rest of the year off, and this child tax year, I make enough money, I don't have to pay rent, I don't have to pay my student loan interest, and so it's like, it's not helping. We're sort of, it helps that the states got rid of the federal part, maybe to some degree, but then there's also a lot more of those benefits to keep them on the sidelines, in my opinion.
So for us, we're in the same boat as Drew. We're Georgia-based. So our HR department handles a lot of the stuff for our corporate stores, but again, our franchisees handle their own internal management of that. But for us, what we're doing to incentivize, and we talked about it on the call, is implementing the tip share program, which we had implemented before, with smaller percentages that the customer has the ability to tip the employees, which we grant that back to them on a monthly basis. We've increased that tip share, that percentage from the customer's point of view, from it being 5, 10, or 15, we increased it to 10, 20, 25%. And what we saw is a 50% jump in tip shares, and just the tips collected for our employees. And for a lot of our team members, they're used to getting $500, $600 bi-weekly checks. So at the end of the month, when they're getting a tip share check, it's coming in even greater than what they're making. And that for us is like, okay, well, this is great. So when we go to submit, job posts online, we definitely push that, hey, we can be as competitive as we can at $11, $12 for a regional concept like ours per hour for line cooks or prep cooks. But we implement like, hey, there's a tip share program that you can make X amount of dollars more. So that's helped us out, at least retain some of the employees.
So saying that, because we're talking about, you have some franchisees, and I know Drew, you have some franchisees out there as well. So when you get into it, you're trying to obviously have consistency of concept, right? With every one of your stores and franchisees and so forth. You're in a labor market concept.